For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. This is a special program that we are bringing to you on the third anniversary of the Kailash Range operations done by the Indian Army on 29th August 2020. This was part of Operation Snow Leopard, which was launched by the Indian Army as in response to the Chinese aggression in Eastern Ladakh. And to take us through the crucial operation that was a counterpunch by India against Chinese aggression and which gave India the options in the negotiations is a special guest speaking for the first time in public, Lieutenant General Savneet Singh, then the GOC or the General Officer Commanding of 17 Mountain Strike Corps. Welcome to this program, General Savneet, and thank you for your time and agreeing to speak to us and give us what happened on those crucial days in August 2020.
Thank you, Nitin.
So before I ask General Savneet what exactly happened and what is the importance of the operation, we have to go into the historical perspective, at least the short historical perspective, why the tensions in Ladakh have happened in the past 3 years. What is the background? And this is something that we're going to talk about. And the steep escalation in the summer of 2020 is something that people have not got the full grip on. So let me first ask General Savneet, who has had extensive experience in Ladakh as well as in Arunachal on the China border. He has been the GOC of the 3 division and also then, as I said, 17 Mountain Strike Corps, and also looked at the historical perspective. So please let us know, what do you think, in your view, was the trigger for the escalation in tension in Eastern Ladakh?
So, Nitin, in my personal view, I think that there was a discord between the political direction which the Chinese were advocating. For example, during the Wuhan talks, there was a lot of bonhomie and positive trajectory which they were projecting, and what was happening along the LAC. The tensions along the LAC have sporadically been going up and down, as you are familiar, and you have covered this area extensively, whether it was Depsang in 2013 or Chumar, this area has seen, and then Doklam happened. And this has been going on and off, and there seemed to be a disparity between the political direction and the military trajectory which was being followed by the PLA. Now what happens is, in 2020, particularly, in my opinion, the Chinese had been pursuing a strategic game. As you are aware, they play this famous game called Weiqi.
Yes, it's an ancient game.
It's an ancient 2,500 years old game. And what they try to do is they try to place these stones on the board in a manner and encircle the other person. So this game they have been practicing along all their borders, whether it is South China Sea, the Spratly Islands, 1.1 square kilometer of a new island has been created by them.
Sure.
So they try and put claims and markers. So these claims and markers have been manifesting on the line of actual control in terms of road infrastructure, cameras, and this they have been doing while objecting to similar counteraction by us,
right,
or our patrolling activities. They say that you can patrol, but you cannot leave any claim or marker on the ground.
Right.
So I think this led increasingly to violation of the protocols which were in place in 2020 in particular.
But like their creeping tactics that they do, and this is what they think, that boil the water so much that it will not spill out of the kettle. And I think you're familiar with it. I think you've been doing this since 1987, you've been looking at this border and been patrolling that area. But in summer of 2020, what would have been an immediate trigger, I mean, in your view? Because that is where I think things went south completely. Was it because India's infrastructure was improving? Was India becoming a little more assertive or aggressive in its patrolling? What was the trigger?
So, Nitin, I think that the infrastructure development has taken a very rapid progress in Eastern Ladakh, and similarly, the military deployment has also increased manifold in Eastern Ladakh from the earlier years.
Right.
And then on top of that, there are large number of surveillance devices which both sides have deployed. So therefore, it is making increasingly difficult for any side to move in unilaterally.
Right.
So the response timings between one patrol coming to their claimed line and the other reacting, the timing has shrunk.
Okay.
And then when the ground troops are tasked to go up to a certain area and they are objected to the other side,
Right.
this leads to a little bit of, you can say, escalation and increased strength
Right.
manifesting. And I think this led to the North Bank incidents and the Galwan incidents, which turned violent.
Right. Yeah.
So this is what I feel was the immediate trigger, and this is starting sometime in April and carries on into
May and June.
June,
Yeah.
and then both sides digging into their respective positions.
And I think the number of troops going up also was much unprecedented in a way, with the Chinese brought in larger number of troops than ever before on the LAC.
Yes, that is right, and this the vertical escalation at the point of discord was sooner or later going to spill over horizontally also.
Exactly.
I would say.
So when you say vertical escalation, let me, for our viewers' benefit, say this: that vertical escalation will be at point A and B, let's say.
Yes.
But horizontal will be into A, B, C, D,
Yes.
E, F. It will go
It
further.
spreads
Across
along the LAC.
entire LAC in the Eastern Ladakh sector. That's what you mean.
Yes, because the patrols which are going, each side then starts gearing up, and it leads to more and more friction
Right.
if it is not controlled immediately.
Exactly. So the first incident happened perhaps on the north bank of Bengang. So
That I think is in the
public domain. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to give them the
Yes.
recap to our viewers.
Yes.
It happened in north bank of Bengang. So in the first week of May, then led to some negotiations, then more deployment, and then culminated in a way in the first phase, the Galwan clash on 15th of June, which saw deaths on both sides. We know the numbers. We've talked about it enough. We're not talking about it right now. But this then led to what is now the main topic of discussion, where we are going to come to. And the Kailash Range operations have been credited in changing the contours of, what India could get as a leverage against the Chinese. Now, this is the overall area of where the Kailash Range operations happened, where you have the Gurung Hill. This is the Spangur Gap. This is the Moldo garrison of the Chinese. This is the Spangur Lake, and this is of course Finger 4, and then goes up to Finger 8 here. This is the Pangangso. This is the south bank of Pangangso, as you can see, and this is where the famous Rizangla battle had taken place in 1962. There is Richin La. As all of you know, our viewers, La is a pass in Tibetan and those languages there. This is where we are. Now, we are going to talk about this with General Savneet, because he was the Mountain Strike Corps GOC. He was the one who planned what is called the QPQ. Let me explain what QPQ is. QPQ is quid pro quo. That if you want to take the enemy by surprise, the adversary by surprise, then you plan operation which he doesn't expect, and then get into a position where you can then leverage your advantage. This is where it is. So, General Savneet, tell us about the military significance of this Kailash Range operations. What is the geography of the Kailash Range to begin with, if you can tell our viewers, and why it became then an advantage for India, and why the Chinese then started asking for more negotiations. So, if this is the south bank of Pangangso, over to you for explaining.
So, Nitin, briefly speaking, Ladakh has got a number of ranges
Right.
that you are aware of. And these ranges are major obstacles for military movement.
Right.
And each side tries to exploit the gaps between these ranges.
Okay.
For example, here you are aware that this is Pangongso and this is the North Bank.
Right.
Running or overshadowing the North Bank and going northwards is the Changchenmo range,
Okay.
which has got ranges in excess of 6,100 meters. And it is only through limited passes that there is a north-south movement
Right.
or east-west movement which is possible.
Sure.
Similarly, on the south bank of Pangong Tso runs the Pangong Range,
Right.
in which this feature of helmet and blacktop, which is closer to the or closer to the south bank and overlooks the Chishul Bowl
Right.
here,
Yes.
and also overlooks the south bank,
Right.
and similarly it also overlooks the south bank, the north bank of Spangor.
Spangor, yeah.
So these are the heights.
Yes.
Here you can see black top. Just behind bump is the black top. You can see a small black line.
Right.
You know, and this is bump area bump, and black top gives a commanding view of both the south bank as well as the Spangor Gap and the Chishul Bowl.
Right.
And the Chinese have a surveillance device through which they have been monitoring all this movement.
Okay.
So there lies the importance of blacktop, bump, and the area in this area. This is part of the Pangong Range.
Okay.
And
Right.
now if you go, this is another feature in the Pangong Range called helmet. And this again the Chinese use to dominate the south bank.
Right.
So this is the area which is between the south bank and the Spangor Gap.
Right.
So any approach which has to come from the Chinese side has to follow the banks of Pangong.
Okay.
That is either the north bank, or they have to come into this area onto the south bank, and the access to the south bank runs behind helmet and blacktop.
So this is you can't see their movement, right?
Yes. But I will come to that view from where we get that view.
Sure.
That we will cover as we go along.
Right.
So now this is the view from the area of the Pangong Range, and a photograph as it is clicked of the Spangor Gap. This is the Spangor Gap,
Right.
and here is the Moldo garrison
Yes.
of the
Chinese.
And then starts the Kailash Range, where the Magar Hill is marked, and thereafter it goes on to the highest feature called Mukpari, and then goes on to Razangla and Rechinla.
Right.
So this particular photograph is from Mukpari towards the north, and this covers the Chinese post of Dorje Kunjam and the Spangor Road junction, from where the road comes and supplies to the blacktop area and the south bank.
So it goes along the Spangor the Spangor Lake.
Spangor Lake.
Right.
One road is coming like this
Right.
to the area of Dorje Kunjam, and another one is running from behind, and it goes on to that.
Right.
So this is the view as from a feature called Mukpari, which is a very key location or a dominating feature, as dominating as you can say the blacktop is for the Chinese. So similarly, Mukpari is a exceedingly dominating feature astride the Spangor Gap, and the first feature which is on the Kailash Range, which gives a total 360 degrees view.
So this is where Mukpari is, right? The spur.
This is one of the spurs going down. So now if you see from Mukpari, this gives across the Spangor a view of the Gurung Hill and the Blacktop, and of importance here, what I had earlier mentioned,
Right.
the track which maintains Blacktop as well as South Bank goes through a place called Chuti Changla,
I see.
a pass here, and is directly under observation from Mukpari. So once you occupy the Kailash Ranges, the entire traffic movement or military movement going to the South Bank is under observation.
So the Chinese movement is under observation if you occupied this.
Yes, if you occupy
That's why
this.
this importance of this
And
Mukpari.
it is important. Coming to the communication, what we were talking.
Right.
You know, what we have to understand is that Rudok to Moldo is about 110, 115 kilometers.
Rudok is their base.
Rudok is their base on the Western Highway.
Western Highway.
And from there, a number of, roads come towards the LAC.
Right.
And one important road which comes to Spangor Road Junction, which I mentioned,
Yes.
Dorje Kunjam, Moldo.
Yeah.
And a offshoot goes and maintains Chuti Changla and South Bank.
I see.
And South Bank.
Okay.
So the complete artery, as it approaches the LAC, is dominated by the Kailash Range.
Kailash. And this is the Kailash Range,
And
basically,
this is
from
the-
Mukpari onwards.
Yes, from Mukpari onwards. And now from Mukpari, you are seeing Razangla,
Yes.
where you mentioned the 62 walks,
Right.
the Rechinla, 0.5320, which we will talk about
Later,
subsequently,
yes.
and the conical top.
Right.
So this is the view of the Kailash Range as it goes away from Mukpari.
But let me ask you, I mean, I'll stop you here and come to a personal question. How do you know all these details? I mean, I'm sure, I said you had an extensive, deployment and experience there. But tell us your own experience in these areas.
You see, Nitin, I have been very fortunate to have served in Ladakh area. In fact, one of my earlier postings when I was a young subaltern with my Unit 7 Garhwal, I was posted to Chishul in 1987.
I see.
And that is the time when we used to walk around trying to spot black-necked cranes. And we rarely spotted a black-necked crane, but more rare was a Chinese patrol.
That time they didn't come this side.
So they were not coming here.
Okay.
So in that time, extensive amount of walking in these areas has given me an insight into these areas. And subsequently in 97 again, I happened to be posted here.
Right.
And there is an anecdote, my family had heard so much about this that they wanted to see Pagong So. And my son's first birthday was celebrated in this area.
Oh, lovely.
And that is in 87.
I see.
And thereafter, I came back in 97 to this area.
Right.
And as you mentioned, I also happened to command the division in this area. So from 2014 onwards till 2020, till the culmination of this operation, I have been off and on associated, made very fond memories of the area, forged some good relations with the locals, and I have very fond memories of Ladakh.
That's true, but more than that, your knowledge of the geography and everything on your fingertips actually shows that the importance of having repeated deployments, specialization of the military personnel and officers especially.
Yes, I think I have been very fortunate that the Indian Army gave me opportunities to go to this area again and again, and that gave me a very good insight into it.
I'm glad that this is happening more and more with other officers also. I've seen now, I've realized that they have been specializing in these areas because that is going to be our primary challenge as we go forward. So, General Savneet, let me get you back to what is our main topic of discussion, the operations on the Kailash Range, which actually had a galvanizing effect on the country. I can tell you, remembering those weeks and the days, because till then everybody was thinking the Chinese have put us under pressure. There was a bit of a gloom, really, that what is going to happen there. This galvanized everyone across the country, and of course, I'm sure in the military. So, what was the thought process and what was the trigger for the Kailash Range operations, if you can tell us that?
Nitin, post the Galwan, there was a lot of mistrust which was there within the military hierarchy of what the Chinese were doing, and what they have probably done was not expected as per the political guidance that was provided to the troops on ground. So there were a lot of talks towards stabilizing the situation, but it seemed that the Chinese were not relenting and going back to status quo ante. So towards this, I think the army headquarters rightly was also drawing up contingency plans that in case the situation goes further south or the Chinese do not relent, then how to carry forward this contest, I would say.
Correct.
And towards that, in July, I was tasked as Strike Corps Commander to carry out an assessment of the situation in Eastern Ladakh.
So, just to tell the viewers, the Strike Corps, Mountain Strike Corps is headquartered in the east, under Eastern Command, or you can say located in the east, and he was there. So, from there he was tasked because Strike Corps is able to go anywhere that the army headquarters or the authorities decide. Is that right?
Yes, primarily the strike corps are there, for offensive tasks and to create options in case the situation so demands.
Sure. So, in July, you were told that you go and do a survey or assessment.
Yes. So, I came to Eastern Ladakh. I did carry out an assessment of the situation. And this was discussed with the hierarchy.
Right.
And the hierarchy said that, okay, you keep on planning various contingencies and you go back to your base.
Right.
So I had gone back to my base and then sometime in end July and beginning August, I was told that you have to move to Eastern Ladakh
Right.
with your headquarters and be prepared for executing a contingency if so required.
Sure.
So this was the situation. Now coming to your question of the trigger
Correct.
of 30th.
Right.
You know, and as once deployed there, the formations were carrying out extensive training.
Right.
While the troops in contact, of course, were those which were, carrying out patrolling, but the reserves which had moved in response to the Chinese movement, we had also built up significant amount of troops.
Right.
And so on 30th of August in the morning, I received a call from the army commander. And he said that there is some situation developing on the night of 29th, 30th. PLA probably in response or anticipating something on the south bank, they had moved into the area of Blacktop and Helmet.
Yes. These
Blacktop,
areas.
Bump,
Bump
and
and
Helmet.
Okay.
They had moved certain troops
Right.
there, and in response, our troops also started moving up from 5167 Bump and these areas.
Right.
And while the Chinese had come down from Blacktop and come to Helmet.
Right.
But they had the advantage of being in close proximity to the heights, while our own troops had to
Yeah, they go from the base. Right.
and they were moving up.
Right.
So this would have led to again a stalemate kind of a situation. So the army commander at that point in time selected the option.
General Zoshi, YK Zoshi was
Yes,
the army
he was
commander.
the army commander,
Right.
and he selected the option of executing the Kailash Range operation.
Right.
And I was told that you have to do it as soon as possible.
Okay.
So immediately I contacted the divisional commander and I told him to be prepared
Right.
and to issue the warning order. And while we called for a meeting where the so-called hierarchy which was executing this could sit together.
Sure.
And then by midday we had started moving up to the Kailash ranges, and since we were in the shadow of the Kailash ranges, probably the PLA did not pick it up.
This was on the 30th of August.
30th of August, midday we started moving,
Right.
and by last light we had a sizable force level onto the heights of Razangla, Richinla, 5320 and Mukpari.
Right. So Mukpari is here, right?
Yes.
This one. Yeah.
So this
So
is
they couldn't pick up from that side because you were on the reverse slope.
that's right. And that is, and in the night, I think that there was some kind of a pickup by their surveillance devices,
Right.
and they picked up certain movement, but we could see their movement only in Dorje Kunjam and on the track towards Rudok. Some vehicular movement was observed,
Right.
but nothing happened, and that gave us crucial time to consolidate the heights. So on the night of 30th, there was, you can say, lot of suspense, excitement, and worry.
Right.
And
What would be the response from
what
the Chinese?
would be the response, and in anticipation how to prepare.
Right.
So large amount of logistics had to be supplied to the troops. Food had to go up. There is no water on these ranges.
Right, correct.
Water had to be fetched up. So all that activity was going on
Right.
on the night of 30th. And then the morning came and we were still on top, and the response had not come in a significant manner.
So, so two questions here. One is, of course, that initially when you moved the troops on 30th day time around noon or whatever you started, so the first movement was of the Ghatak platoons, the things that they go?
You can say that
Yeah,
the
okay.
first movement was very small to
Small.
secure the key heights,
Right.
and then the formation.
Then the formation. But when you say logistics, and again, this is for our viewers, we have to tell them that for years together after the 1962 war, nobody had gone on to those heights and nobody had occupied those heights, right?
That's right. Only patrols used to go
Patrols
in
used to
these
go.
areas, and I had happened to visit this area when I was the GOC, and I was aware.
Right.
The crucial point in this was that we had an existing track on which vehicles could move up to Richinla.
I see.
And similarly, the Chinese also had a track. This
Yeah.
is the Chinese track coming up towards Richinla.
I see.
You know,
from
and
their
they-
side, from their
they,
side.
and they also had a track, and we also had a track.
Okay.
So both sides, you know, the early mover advantage
Right.
would go to the side which was
Which is
first
first
on top.
So you did the first movers advantage on
We had the
30th
first movers advantage in the case of the Kailash.
Kailash Range. And that's exactly why the Kailash Range operations are now a part of a folklore, actually, if you ask me. But also, what surprised many people, I don't know whether it surprised the Chinese or not, they did, perhaps, that the armor was also taken up to these areas.
Nitin, strictly speaking, the movement of the armor was initiated by the Chinese. However, we had kept our armor in the shadow in close vicinity
Okay.
for a contingency.
Right.
And we could see large amount of PLA armor and guns being mobilized in the area, in that area. But our response, our armor did go, but was always in the shadow. It had never gone on top initially.
Right.
I would say.
Okay.
But in response, as their armor came up, then
So their armor coming up was in response to our occupying those heights.
yes, they had initially, you know, there was on 1st August, their initial patrols came in close vicinity of our troops, and you could say that they started showing this kind of banners and saying that you please go back.
Right.
And once our troops gave a very stern warning, they went back,
Right.
and then you can say that they started bringing their armor
So they
behind.
brought them here like
They
this
brought
kind of
their,
thing.
gradually they crept up their armor.
Yes.
And meanwhile, concurrently, there were talks going on both the sides
Sure.
or to disengage.
There was surely also that attempt from both sides that there should be negotiations.
Yes.
But this gave us options, this operations
Yes,
basically.
this option, the build-up also
Right.
indicates the importance to the other side. You
Right.
know, this kind of build-up is probably the largest build-up that has ever happened on the line of actual control.
Right.
You know, between the
Exactly.
two countries.
Sure. Not even in 62 we had so many troops there.
Yes,
Really.
and neither has it happened in any of the previous build-ups.
Standoffs or build-ups that
Standoffs.
ever happened. Yeah.
So the thresholds were severely being tested, I would say, by this.
and maybe red lines in some people's minds, basically.
Yes.
So,
So
this
you
is
can
what you
see
do.
this, their armor coming up,
they were
you know,
trying to
right
build up.
under our observation.
Right. So this is what you were observing from the top. Your
Yes,
troops were observing.
and their complete build-up was visible.
Right.
You know, and had a military option to be exercised.
Yes.
You know, in military parlance, this is a very, very suicidal kind of a build-up.
A juicy target. I'm saying this. But this is what they say, that, you know, when you have the heights, commanding the heights, then you have the advantage. I think that's where Kailash Range operations got the advantage for India.
Yes, those were strategically important.
Right. This is their build-up again.
Yes, that's
I see. So, just to, you know, sort of finish this particular operational deployment here, when they brought in all this, obviously they also knew that India had the similar deployment or similar preparation in the shadows, like you said, of the armor, of the guns and everything. So this became like a not a stalemate, but a trigger for more negotiations, more closer negotiations, perhaps.
I would say that very serious negotiations commenced
Thereafter.
and as the army commander has gone on media to say that
Right.
probably this was one of the turning points in the negotiation.
No, of course they did. But of course, after this, it took both sides, I think, another 5 months to get on to first set of disengagements with February 2021 that we talked about.
That's right.
Right?
So this is what I feel, that the negotiations carried on for a long time,
Yes.
and the build-up both sides had consolidated on ground, so the modalities had to be worked out, and those over a period of time, I think it is the aim of the operation was achieved. I
Exactly.
would say like that.
So that's I think the point in which I must ask you this, now that you have demitted office and, you know, come to this area, that these are the areas that were vacated in February 2021 by both sides. Now nobody is there. But there is a school of thought amongst a lot of analysts and commentators that could India have utilized this QPQ or the counter operations in Kailash Range for more concessions from the Chinese? Could they have been utilized for more harder negotiations and more, moving away from the positions that they have been facing each other? What is your view on this?
I think it is part of a step-by-step process which has been done with great maturity by the two nations.
Right.
And since the largest build-up was here, anything going south would have led to a very severe vertical escalation.
Right.
So to start with, North Bank and South Bank got reconciled.
Correct.
To mutually agreed terms, which are in the media domain, in the public domain.
Yes.
And I think that this also happened to achieve the aim of telling the other side that unilateral change of status quo is past the time which it could be effected, that both sides will contest.
Correct.
So, keeping that in mind, I think it is a matter of time before the other friction points also disengagement happens.
Yes.
It is a slow process, but we have to exercise strategic patience in these kind of issues where there is not a clearly acceptable line of actual control between the two nations.
Not delimited. Very well said. I think extremely well put. That and subsequently some friction points have been resolved. Hot springs.
I'm sure that with the passage of time, better sense will prevail,
and we'll get into this.
Both sides will be accommodative of each other's concerns.
Right. Very well put. And thank you very much. This is the first time we are getting such detailed insight into what happened, and thanks to you.
It's my
Congratulations.
Pleasure. Thank you
for having done. I think the Indian Army is a stellar record remains when faced with adversity. Come up with options which give the adversary the necessary impetus for more negotiations rather than going in for vertical escalation, as you spoke about. That was Lieutenant General Savneet Singh, the erstwhile GOC of 17 Mountain Strike Corps, giving us for the first time in public domain what the Kailash Range operations actually entailed, how it was done, and what it achieved on the ground. We have, of course, heard other senior commanders speaking about it, but this is a much more grounded and on-ground report which we have now found. So keep watching StratNewsGlobal. You know where to reach us. Keep sending your feedback and comments, and of course we'll bring you more such reports, more detailed analysis of significant milestones in the India-China tension along the LAC in Eastern Ladakh and of course other areas of the boundary. Thanks for watching.